Hey everybody, it's been a really long time since I did a video, so I was kind of itching to do one. So I thought I'd do a video in Photoshop on one of my favorite techniques of taking a black and white photo and turning it into a color photo. So this old image of Marilyn Monroe, I found it on Google Images. Uh, it's a really simple technique to do. It's just using the blend modes within the layers to add some color. So I'm just going to quickly run this down and try and get this video under 15 minutes so that I can put it on YouTube. So let's just begin. You can ignore these little layers that I have here. I'll show you what I did later, cheat a little bit here so I could speed this video up. So the very first thing we're going to do is look at what mode our image is in. So we're going to go up to image mode, and mine's in RGB color, but you might find a lot of black and white videos are going to be in grayscale mode. You just want to change it to RGB color and work with it in that mode. So once it's done and it's set to RGB color, we're going to create a new layer on top of your original layer. You never want to work on the original layer because you always want to have that as a backup. So we're just going to create a new layer, and we're going to call this one hair because that's going to be the first thing that we're going to start with. Now to do this technique, it's as simple as this. You're going to go up to your layer mode and you're going to change it to color. You can work with some other ones to do this as well, but right now we're going to start with color. We can leave the opacity at 100, and Marilyn was a blonde, of course, so we're going to pick a blonde color for her hair, maybe a pale yellow, probably looks good right there. And we want a big, soft brush. So we're going to be in our brush tool, we're going to go up to our options here. Make sure your hardness is set to 0, as soft as you can get it. And the size right now, we're just going to make it as big as we can get it for the hair. Now, the reason that we want it big is because with a big, soft brush, it tends to have, say, an overspray, like a paint can, where it sprays a little bit farther than where your mouse is. And for purposes like this hairline down here, we want it to touch that hairline, but we don't want it to be this hard edge where you see this like pixel line. So you'll see what I'm talking about as we paint here. So we're going to start painting, and I can already see this may be a little bit too yellow, but the good thing about this Photoshop is that we can always change stuff after the fact. You can see what I'm saying with the hairline here. I'm painting in the middle, but it's kind of extending past that. The more I just sit here and move my pen tool back and forth, the higher it goes and kind of stays within the bounds of the hair. This is kind of a technique that you'll learn just from practice. Again, as I mentioned, I'm using a pen tablet. I can't recommend enough to use a pen tablet. If you're doing anything with Photoshop seriously, or even just amateur, whatever, it's a pen tool is the tool that you need the most. To do this with a mouse, it's really ridiculous. You can do it obviously, but you're just gonna fight with it the entire time. So again, I just would have to recommend everyone gets a pen tool. You can get them pretty cheap. Now it's kind of working pretty well here. We're gonna adjust the brush size. I use the bracket keys, the left and right bracket to adjust, but you can do it up at the top here if that's what you're used to. But again, just adjust it as you need it. Now, the smaller the brush, the more hardcore the line becomes when you're painting. So sometimes you need that, like when you're trying to stay close to an edge. You don't want a big, giant brush, and you're going to paint outside the edge. So you need to be a little bit small to kind of just stay within the bounds. But it really works well for rough hairlines. I mean, realistically, there's a million little tiny strands that are blending in with her skin here. So to paint every tiny little strand is virtually impossible. But with this big brush, with the overspray, it kind of does it for us. And the naked eye is never going to see the little imperfections. So I really have to try and speed this video up because I could sit here and just talk about this forever while I'm doing it. And I'm not going to be perfect with this because I'm rushing. So there's going to be a lot of imperfections in my video turnout here. But again, you know, Photoshop gives you what you put into it. So if you spend a lot of time with this and you're really careful and you paint every little strand like this little guy over here, the end result's going to look way better. Some tricky things that I found about this image were when it gets into this little area over here towards the shadow, it's kind of hard to see where the hair begins and ends, so it's going to be a little tricky to make that look so real. And also these earrings, the earrings are very challenging because there's so much detail to them. There's some parts, these darker areas, we could probably color, but it's gonna, again, it's gonna be a little bit funky. It's gonna be hard to make them look like they were naturally some kind of color. All right, so I guess for the hair, this doesn't look too bad. Now let's just say that this may be a little bit too yellow. Her hair probably wouldn't look like this color in real life. We can do some things after the fact to adjust that. And we're going to start first by one of my favorite ones is going up to image, adjustments, and we're going to mess around with the color balance. Color balance is a great color balancer. It's exactly what it says it is. I mean, or change, or even every one of these here does different things. Mid-tone, shadows, highlights are going to affect it different ways. We're going to say we want to maybe change her hair, add a little bit of blue, and some magenta. And it's very slight, as you can see. There's not much going on, but it is making it somewhat different here. Shadows. Now there's a real yellow hair. I don't want that. There we go. That's kind of looking a little bit better from where we want to where we want to be. And highlights. Again, there's no perfect setting for this. It's just, it is what it is. You just mess around with the sliders until it gets kind of the color that you want. And a little bit something natural. I don't. That kind of looks pretty good. And you just hit OK. Now there's also a lot of other techniques you could use. Image, adjustments, you can do hue and saturation. Typically you would want to stay away from the hue part of this because that's going to change, you know, to some wacky punk rock style Marilyn Monroe. But leaving that at 0, you can mess around with saturation. Obviously, bring it to the left is going to make it back to black and white. We don't want that. And you know, lightness you can play around with that too. You also have curves and levels. Levels, it's not going to do too much here. It's going to see different tones and back to black and white if you want it that way. You also have image adjustments, vibrance. You can play around with the vibrance of it. Bring the saturation back down. Like I said, the two favorites that I have are color balance and hue saturation. Those are really good techniques. Now, when I said earlier in the video that I cheated a little bit, painting the skin takes a really long time. The detail in the face is something you want to pay close attention to, around the lips and the eyes and the eyebrows. You never really want to paint over the eyebrows. You want to paint as close within the strands as you can, again with a big soft brush. Same thing as for the hairline. And work with it like that, because it's, like I said, there's a lot of detail in this, and it would take me forever to just do this on the video. So I already did it. So what I'm going to do is click on my previous layer that I did here with skin, and I'm going to just select it. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to grab a skin color, which this probably a good skin color right here. We need to make sure the blending mode is that color, and I'm just going to go up to Edit, Fill. Whoa. And that looks kind of freaky deaky. You can see right here it needs to be colored in a little bit. and there's some spots up here, but I just did the overall coloring so that I could make this video go fast. I'll just give you a quick little mention of show you what I was talking about with the bigger brush. When you color here, it makes it blend with the hairline pretty seamlessly. And same thing for the eyebrows. You just want to try and get as much, undo that, too much, as much of this black and white out of the photo as possible. We're going to paint, everything we paint here is going to have a new layer. So we're going to do the eyebrows, that's going to be a new layer. The lips, that's going to be a new layer. Whiten the teeth, even though it's pretty white, we want to make it look modern. So we're going to do maybe an overlay on the teeth. Her ear here needs to be painted to match her skin. And you can see all the little imperfections and stuff I missed along the edges here. But I don't really have time for that, so I'm just going to show you again another changing this color of her skin because it looks pretty orangey. So for this I would go up to image adjustments. I think we'll start with hue saturation. Let's just mess around with the hue and see where that goes. It's a little red. We could take down the saturation a little bit. Looks pretty good right there. And maybe just see what the color balance will do for us. There you go. See, again, it's just finding what you like, what you think looks cool. This doesn't have to be done on a female or a male, obviously. This can be done on anything, any black and white image, anything you want to color, add color to. It's just, for this particular video, I chose Marilyn Monroe. I guess that's pretty much it. All I can say is every detail, everything you're going to color, create a new layer, make sure that it's sent into the color mode. I'll show you what my final image looks like that I had done previous to making this video. Let me just turn off all these other ones. This is what my final outcome looked like. So you can see it looks pretty realistic. I mean, from far away, at the 100% mode in my picture here, it looks pretty legitimate. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of imperfection by this hairline here, but other than that, I think it looks pretty real. I painted as much as the earrings as I could. So this was just a quick technique I use. Again, it's just changing the blend mode to color. You can, again, use things like multiply and overlay, and you can use normal mode with just lowering the opacity. But color seems to do the trick for me, and it gives me good outcomes like this. So I hope this helped you, and enjoy.